Thank you, Kevin. I know it's tough. It's tough to do. I feel a kinship to Kevin. Excuse me. My stepson is a career Marine. Kevin's son has the same name as I do, Jeff. Our birthdays are 1 day apart. And like Kevin says, we really need your help. We need to tell Congress and the White House to end these endless wars. And one phrase that MFSO has started using is, don't take the bait. The bait is ISIS beating us since day one, and we're falling for it. Means we can't do anything, or we feel it's too hard to do anything. Well, we send the military in to fight ISIS, and the military even says, we can't beat ISIS. It's not a military job. It's a political job. And the local people have to do that, along with our help, but not the military. But we seem to think that if we can't solve an easy problem, we'll just send the military in and forget it. We'll just say, well, we're fighting it, so we'll even though we can't end it with the military. And so, write a letter, or a number of letters, to all your Congress representatives and to the White House, and tell them to end this. We want all our troops home now. Thank you. Next is our next panel member is Michael McPherson. He's the Executive Director of Veterans for Peace and co-chair of the Don't Shoot Coalition in St. Louis. That formed at the wake of the killing of Michael Brown, Jr. From August 2010 to September 13th, he served as the National Coordinator with United for Peace and Justice. He's a former board member of Veterans for Peace as well as the Executive Director. Michael works closely with the St. Louis-based Organization for Black Struggle and the Network New Jersey-centered People's Organization for Progress. He joined, and I think we forced him to join Military Family Speak Out back in 2003. And Michael joined Michael's son, 2 generations of military families, basic military people, joined the Army in January of 2004 and served 1 term in Iraq in 2005, 2006. He separated, fortunately for Michael and his son, his son separated from the military in 2007. Michael also joined the Army Reserve as an enlisted soldier and attended basic training the summer between his junior and senior high school. He is an ROTC graduate and served as a field artillery officer in the 24th Mechanized Infantry Division. Excuse me, I was not an Army person. During Desert Shield, Desert Storm, also known as Gulf War I. Michael's military career includes 6 years of reserve and 5 years of active duty service. He separated from active duty in 1992. Michael?
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. So one thing about being in the Military Family Speak Out is that there's a lot of pain in the organization. And I think similar to Veterans for Peace, you know, the pain comes from the violence that for the Military Family Speak Out member, it mostly comes from the violence of what happens to our children, or the violence that our children have seen or have done themselves, and then it comes back home in various forms, and the most devastating form of that is to die by suicide. And as the Veterans for Peace, it's the violence we've seen, the violence we have done, and once again, it comes back home, and many of us veterans, aside from Veterans for Peace, self-medicate and do things to try to deal with that violence, and sometimes some of us die by suicide. And in the veterans community, once again, aside from Veterans for Peace, there's a pecking order of the combat infantry soldier who has, served as the soldier on the ground, and that's, when I was in ROTC, or when I was in the military, but particularly before I went on active duty. When I was young and thinking about being a soldier, what did I want to be? I wanted to be a Special Forces Ranger guy, a badass motherfucker who, that's the dude that does what the military does. So that's the highest form of being in the military. So there's this pecking order. But there's a similar pecking order, I think, in military families, because the person who's lost their child has made the greatest sacrifice, and then you're going on down to the person whose child comes home and just lives their life. I just say that because, for one thing, that's something that we I think in Veterans for Peace, we have to deal with this pecking order, because it's a fake thing. I mean, there's truth to what people have done and seen and how they're affected, but at the same time, there should not be this pecking order, because there's no, if you serve on the battlefield or not, you're still part of the machine, and there's people with PTSD who simply strap bombs to planes, and they never saw the battlefield, and they have post-traumatic stress, so there should be no pecking order in that understanding of that. And it's a similar thing I think, for military families. However, when I sit beside Kevin and hear these stories, or, when I met Cindy Sheehan, and I've met many Gold Star family members, I have to have a lot of respect for their ability to continue and fight and struggle against the war machine, because I don't know if I would honestly have the strength to do it, because just having witnessed the pain, the pain of unfortunately, I've had the opportunity to witness the pain of U.S. service members' parents, and when I went to Iraq, I witnessed the pain of Iraqi parents who have lost their children to the actions of U.S. service members. And being a black person who has been involved in police issues for a long time, I've also witnessed the pain of parents who have lost their children to police violence or street violence. And I have to tell you that pain is the same. All of these parents' pain is the exact same. It's a terrible thing to witness and be part of, but I just have to take my hat off to you. I just wanted to say that. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is where 82nd Airborne is, Fort Bragg. And I say that because, you don't want to start out with, I was born in a log cabin and all that kind of thing. But I grew up there, and growing up in an environment where you see soldiers, and they're real professional, they look good in their berets. One time, only Special Forces and Airborne wore berets, not everybody wears berets, but you want to be that. And so it was almost predetermined that I was going to join the military, because I grew up in that kind of environment, as well as my son. And I thoroughly respect the military today in respect to the individual soldier who is trying to do the right thing and have a great career and be that respectful person. In Fayetteville, patriotism is a big deal. It's called an all-American city, service, blah, blah, blah. And in my home, we were taught God, country, and family. I don't think it meant the same thing that a lot of other people were taught when we say God, country, and family, because I know in my church I was taught to see God in everybody. I know some people's churches don't necessarily teach that. So the journey from being a soldier, willing to go in the battlefield and take people's lives, to being a veteran for peace really wasn't that long a journey for me. It was a journey, but it wasn't real far because once I thought war was a necessary evil, always questioning it as something to do, because when you're killing people, you're killing God's children, and I was aware of that, but I thought it was something that had to be done at times, and now I know it's more of a choice than not, right? So that was mostly the turnaround for me. And also growing up in a teacher's home who watched the news and made sure we knew history, I was well aware of U.S.'s not so clean history, especially as a black person, and also having Native American blood, you know. So I don't know how you make these disconnections so you're willing to still go in the military knowing these things. But you know, one of the things I do know, one of it's going back to seeing these soldiers, and my friends get out of high school, they go in the military, they come back, drive nice cars, you know, and the ladies want to go out with them. I'm like, that looks good to me. I want to do that too. So that's one reason. But also because our nation lifts up military service as if it's the highest form of any kind of service possible. And I think most young people want to do something that they feel good about and has meaning. You know, so I saw the military as one of those places at least that I could start that and do that and give back to a country that I loved then and I still love now. That's why I do what I do, one of the reasons I do what I do. Now it's to hold our country accountable to the ideals that I thought it was supposed to live up to. And one of the reasons that I decided to serve is because of those ideals. So now I'm serving in a different way because I'm not going to let our country get away with, or those leaders get away with. You know, it's not a return back to those ideals because we never were there. So please, you know, as a black person, any person of Native American heritage, or any person that understands American history knows we were never, you know, we're going to take the country back. No, we have to grab the country. There's no taking it back because we never had it. So, you know, anyway, I'm going off. So one of the things is in order to end these endless wars that we have to do something to diminish, and I don't want to say like totally diminish the role of a soldier, because there's some truth to that. However, it's not what they're trying to make us believe. And interestingly enough, you know, there's I heard about this cartoon I need to find where they show this Tomb of the Unknown. And, you know, one of the reasons they do that is because they want you to look at that and say, oh, if I die, they're going to remember me forever. You know, it's part of that psychology of building a soldier, right? So they show that in the cartoon, but then they show a real veteran who is homeless. So they got all these people guarding the Tomb of the Unknown, but here's this real veteran who's homeless that people walk by and don't pay any attention to. So one of the things is that we have to help people understand that this is the reality, the real cost of this service that you're doing, and this is bullshit over here with the unknown soldier, that people really don't give a damn about you. So that can help young people, you know, not believe that they need to serve in order to have meaning. I did serve in the first Gulf War. I think that's important to, especially today, to understand that we, as the U.S., have been involved in the lives of the people of Iraq for at least 24 years in a very violent way.
Right.
And even before that, we were involved in helping Saddam Hussein come to power and all these different things. I just wanted to point that out, that it's not the 12th anniversary, it's like the 24th or the 13th, whatever. The other thing that I think is interesting is that my son also served in Iraq, as was noted, and that really is the same war. It's not a different war, and that's a marketing ploy for our nation to believe that there's a first Gulf War and an Iraq War, etc. So it looks like we haven't been at war for 24 years against the people of Iraq. So I think, you know, we need to, as peace activists, telling the truth, help people understand. It seems like in a way we're just catching up to this idea of endless war, because this endless war has been going on for really as long as the U.S. has been in existence. There's been a war of some type of expansion by the United States. A little juxtaposition for me as a soldier who served and then, you know, not like I didn't write home to my mom either and tell her, oh, this is what's going on. Although, fortunately for me, the Gulf War and the current conflicts are very different in their nature, except for that point of when people were fighting each other. But in terms of the types of fights and how long they went on, it's not nearly the same thing. So there wasn't really a lot of horror to report back in the first place. But, you know, coming back home and becoming a military parent, having the emotions that my mother must have gone through in terms of worrying about me. You know, I had no idea as a soldier what those emotions were like. Coming back and my son deploying, emotions like just all of a sudden breaking out and starting to cry, you know, because I'm worried about my son. Or hearing about someone dying, wondering if it is your child, and then finding out it's not your child, and being ecstatic about it, but then remembering that it is somebody's child, and feeling guilty. So those are the kind of emotions, I think, as a military family parent, you know, that you go through on a daily basis until your child returns. So my son came back, fortunately, at least without physical wounds. But he did have some post-traumatic stress. Unfortunately, once again, he's been able to pull himself out, and it wasn't, or at least it doesn't appear to be, and even then, not, you know, super, I don't even know how to say what I mean, I don't know how to compare, you know, so, but things like he couldn't sleep at the time he was married. He's still married, haven't got a divorce, but they're not together. Sleeping with his weapon. You know, couldn't sleep without his weapon. Having arguments, me and getting picked up. And it's a kind of a funny story, but it's not funny, but it kind of is. When his wife called the police, they came, and fortunately around bases, the police have a little bit of a different understanding of what's going on generally with people, so they're not as quick to kill people as they are in other places. So. He ran outside, it was cold, he ran into the woods, the police would back off, he'd come out of the woods, the police would come, he'd run back in the woods. And he let them know he didn't have a gun, so they arrested him and brought him to the police station. And the reason I'm smiling is because the police, when I talked to them, they were telling me the story and that he was no problem, and they just thought it was kind of funny because it was like, I guess we were able to arrest him because it was so cold and he didn't have any clothes, you know, which was good because they were able to take him, you know, into custody. So he had that kind of thing going on. So to wrap up real quick, my son had, I have 3 grandchildren, but the second of them, Jeremiah, died in February of 2007 from a spinal cord degenerative disease, and he was like 7 months old. 7 months old. So my son wanted to go on leave, obviously, because, you know, he just lost his child, and the military had told him, no, you can't, or they gave him a day or 2 off, maybe. We're getting ready to go back to Iraq in a few months, you need to train, you need to forget about this. So my son decided to go AWOL, which means absent without leave. So, but he didn't really go anywhere. He was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, so he just went to Clarksville, which is the town, you know, adjacent to it in Tennessee. And he stayed home, so, you know, he went AWOL, he didn't go anywhere. So then, actually, I should tell you that I was down in, I went back to New Orleans for Katrina relief, and he called me before he went AWOL, and he was kind of crying and telling me all the stuff that was going on. And I was trying to tell him, you know, calm down, let me help you out. Don't do anything before you talk to me, which of course he didn't listen to me. So he went AWOL. Anyway, he goes back to work, so they arrest him, and then they put him in jail. So he's in jail for, I don't know, a month and a half or something of that nature. And then they start processing him to put him out of the military with an other than honorable discharge, which is good because he didn't go back to Iraq, right? But at the same time, it's like crazy, You know, like this is what you're doing to a person who lost their child and really doesn't want to even get out of the military. You know, so I'm kind of happy about it, but at the same time, you know, what kind of sense does this make? So I think it just points to the absurdity of the military, and especially individual commanders, because commanders have so much discretion about what they do or don't do. And to show how angry my son was at the military and the country to some degree, when I went there later on, after he had gotten out of jail, I looked in the bathroom, and I like the flag, the U.S. flag, a lot. For me, it's a symbol of what our country should be, so I respect the flag, but I'm never mad at anybody who desecrates it for real reasons. I mean, you know, because there's real reasons to desecrate the flag. If you're a veteran and you're homeless and nobody's helping you, I can see it could be for you to desecrate the flag. I ain't got no problem with that. So my son's got the flag that they had given him after his service in Iraq, laid on the floor in the bathroom, so that when he gets out the tub, he's like getting on, you know, using the flag to dry his feet and stuff. And I'm looking at that like, wow, my son is really pissed off. So my son has been able to pull himself out of you know, his post-traumatic stress and going to school and move on. So I'm really blessed in that way. So one thing I think is important that we have to do, once again, going back to this idea of changing the narrative of how people see the military and acceptance of war. We have to, I'm really trying to stress to people that people think in stories, and that one of the reasons people can take information and dismiss it is because it doesn't fit into their narrative about life. So information is not enough. We have to paint alternative stories, or ones that help them, that fit into the way they see the world and help them shift. So I just really, really want people to understand that if we do not do that, that's how they win, is by painting a narrative. And in fact, right now, ISIL, and I don't call it ISIS because I think ISIS is the Egyptian goddess, so I don't call it ISIS. ISIL has painted a narrative that is attracting a lot of people to them because of the narrative they have created, the stories that they have created. So we, as peacemakers and justice seekers, have to create a narrative, an overarching narrative. And as far as the VA system goes, the biggest thing that's wrong with the VA is there's too many damn wars. So there's too many veterans that need service through the VA. That's the biggest thing that's wrong with the VA. And while the VA can be improved, it cannot be fixed because of the problem I just said, unless we stop the wars. And as part of that, and this is the last thing, once we as soldiers, as service members, are wounded, we can never be made whole. You can never be made whole. You might be able to manage that and live and continue to live a successful life. I'm not saying that whatsoever. But being made whole will not happen. So that's one of the things one of the reasons the VA can't be fixed, because if we're trying to make the soldier whole, that's just impossible. So we have to stop the wars. Thank you.